Hi everyone, this is Vishal Sachdev here, and we have Beth and Victoria from Grainger with us for taking some questions from you. We have some questions on the forums that you have already put up there, and I've shared that with both of them. So, what we'll do is we'll just chat a little bit about one interesting article we saw, rather I saw on, shared on Twitter by somebody about the trends in display versus search advertising, and then have Beth and Victoria share any other trends they see in sort of, in their field of expertise. And then we'll move on to some of the questions. And I see some questions already popping up on the Q&A screen as well on the Hangout. So feel free to use that as well as we go through the Hangout. So first off, Beth and Victoria, welcome and thank you for taking the time to chat with our students. Some of these students have, almost are close to finishing, and we have a few, about 10, who have already finished. So we are seeing a lot of diversity in the sort of the campaign plans they're giving. So hopefully some of those give you interesting ideas as well. So over to um, uh, you know over to you both. I wanted to just get your perspectives on this article that I shared with you, which talks about the fact that display, sort of the spending on display, seems to be on target. I think the time frame they had in the article was about 5 years to actually overtake search advertising. What are your thoughts on that those kind of numbers?
Yeah, well, good morning, Michelle, and to the rest of you in our listening audience. I feel like I'm broadcasting from WMAQ. This is Victoria Jurkowski. Last time was my first time doing a Google Hangout, so I decided to make it a little more visually interesting for you this time. So we have the Chicago skyline in our background and a more attractive member of our digital marketing team with us this morning. so, um, but, Michelle, the point that you raised actually was um, part of the reason why I made the change in my own career, moving from traditional media into digital and specifically into display. And I believe eMarketer, if you're quoting a similar article that I saw this week, actually says that display advertising is poised to outpace search in 2016 in terms of total spending. So even sooner than maybe they predicted. But the reason being is because display has evolved far from the transactional retargeting bottom of the funnel that it originated to really being a much more targeted and efficient way to reach mass audiences with branding messages. So we've really seen an explosion of video, and I think the marketplace is kind of poised and ready for ultimately what we hope to see soon, which is to have programmatic TV and more digital media available in the RTB and programmatic marketplace. So it's really become a replacement for a lot of traditional TV, and I think we're really seeing a lot of brand marketers that are waking up to that. Thought leaders like the Procter and Gamble's of this world that are really starting to pool a lot of money into programmatic video.
I always forget to unmute myself. I know another sort of convergence we've seen happening with traditional video programming moving to the internet, and I am one of the people who sort of cut the cord and moved all my viewing through the internet. How does that and I don't have a sense of to what extent ad buying on that medium is programmatic. Could you give some insights into that?
Yeah, well, the really big media companies like Comcast and NBC, for instance, are recognizing that they need to embrace the programmatic marketplace before they're forced to. And so they're starting to do larger, what we call private marketplace deals, PMPs, where they do upfront deals much the way that we would have with broadcast or network TV back in the day. They're now doing that with programmatic video. So advertisers are able to go in and they're able to cherry pick the big tent poles of TV viewing, for instance. So the Academy Awards, Super Bowls, not Super Bowl yet, but a lot of the big event TVs that are events that do very high ratings, you're able to purchase upfront now as part of a private marketplace deal. And soon more inventory will be available that way. I can't tell you exactly what percent of the inventory is traded that way because a lot of that is proprietary. A lot of those deals they're trying to keep quiet right now, but we see the industry quickly moving in that direction.
Always good to be looking out at trends that are going to shape the market, and I think uh, programmatic video buying on on these channels would probably uh, um, make us retool on the skills that are required to effectively compete. But I'm guessing the platforms and the mechanisms might be similar, so most of the professionals might be able to extend their expertise in programmatic buying on the internet to buying on in traditional video content platforms as well.
Yes, that's true. There is, aside from the strategy and knowing what audiences you want to reach at what time and what environments for the right price, right people, right place, right time. It's the same concepts apply for the digital environment as they do for terrestrial and traditional media. But what I've learned in my own career transition is there's this whole other thing called data, which traditional broadcast marketers and buyers wouldn't be as well versed in, and that's the ability to capture all those signals. So our first party, second, and third party data that is the whole part of the audience definition that differs so dramatically from what we were used to doing. So we used to buy demographics, and we used to buy the type of content that we thought would attract a certain type of audience. And now we're able to find that audience wherever they are. We can also make the context relevant through contextual targeting and private marketplace deals, as I said. But we're truly starting with the audience first. But an understanding of that data and how it's collected and what data can be transferred to what platforms is really important. And that's where Victoria, with her background, and she has a degree in mathematics, really has a penchant for data. That's where her background has really been an asset to the team.
So Victoria,
not to put you on the hot seat here.
No, it's fine. I actually think that, kind of like the key underscore there is, getting the data to talk to all of the platforms, right? Like that's really where kind of like a lot of issues come in because we're not, yeah, we have IT talent here, in marketing, but a lot of marketers are not usually technology first. So that's definitely been interesting to watch kind of the industry, acquire more statisticians, acquire more IT people to be able to build out all of that technology to adopt all of that marketing theory and all of the marketing ideology and kind of see them come together.
I think you had mentioned something with reference to the data integration between platforms when you had shared the data or sort of the simulated data about your campaign performance for the Bosch campaign. So perhaps it's a good time to move on to that data as well. So that was really useful for generating a lot of discussion among our learners. And I thought it would be good to have you just walk us through the data and clarify, the segments that you're tracking and how we differentiate between the segments that are there in that data file. And there are a few questions, pertaining to that, and a couple that are coming up on the chat here. So let me try and share that file on the screen, and let's see if we can just go through that and have you explain for, let's say, about 5 minutes what that data is.
Yeah, sure.
So does that show up for you now, or do I need to make it a little bit bigger?
Nope,
or is it clear? Okay, so over to you.
Great. So there seem to be a lot of questions about, like what exactly are these segments? audience? Like where, how are they defined? So I just kind of want to clear up, these are not necessarily mutually exclusive segments, because of the platform issues that we know that we have, right? So there's, you know, between all of these various platforms, every time the pixel fires, it has to be able to talk to a server. If that server doesn't get the signal in time, if there's a delay, if something gets lost, then whatever that pixel was sending is gone forever. It happens a lot less often with pixels, and it happens more often with the communication between the DMP and the media platforms. So that's kind of why this is kind of an experiment in how big does the audience, like the targeting audience, have to be in order for that drop off to no longer matter. So we used a combination of both site pixels and DMP segments. So the BoschTools.com only segment, that is based completely on the media partner site pixels on BoschTools.com. That was really just a all-encompassing. We're not excluding anybody in here. It doesn't matter, how irrelevant we might think they are. They came to BoschTools.com, so we got their cut. The other segment that seemed to be in question was the BoschTools.com, but no Grainger visit. So this one was it was initially based on the DMP segment, but we had a technological error, and the time that it would have taken to fix that error would have, it would have been outside of the scope of the campaign. So we kind of simulated that segment. It's the same segment, but instead of using the DMP, we used a combination of site pixels. So we used the site pixel on Bosch.com and the site pixel on Grainger.com. So we wanted to see how specific of a target did we need. Could we track the user's experience through through these combinations of segments? Because although we do have some path to conversion analysis, that's actually fairly laborious, and it's easier to track path to conversion through kind of like cascaded audience segments. So hopefully that answers, that helps to clear up that definition. So I think that probably the rest of the data should be a little bit more straightforward. The only other nuance, I guess, about how this campaign was set up was that we really wanted to optimize to people who were actually purchasing Bosch products, because we use these site pixels for so very many things. They're not set up front to collect or to focus on certain data. So, for example, although we can see everybody's SKUs in a cart, all of the items that they're ordering, we don't usually segment out based on that. We don't usually optimize to people who have bought certain things. But in this campaign, we decided to because of the specific brand focus. We filtered out all of the orders that only had some Bosch item in them. So it's very, we know actually that this campaign drove a lot of other orders for competitive products and also for completely irrelevant products. There were people who received at least one impression from this campaign who ended up converting on Grainger.com, who bought batteries, for example. So we just decided to exclude those orders from this campaign because they were so much less relevant.
And if I could just tag on to that, the type of targeting that we're doing here is really super targeted, which is great, and has made the campaign really effective. The ability to do that is, I think, contingent on how broadly you're targeting. For instance, our retargeting campaigns for Grainger.com, we sell over 1 million products. I don't know whether it's up to 1.2, 1.3 million. So to try to, limit it to a specific product or a specific product category when you're dealing with that kind of breadth of offering can be incredibly difficult. So with a campaign like this, it's much more focused. It's much more easy to do that type of advanced targeting. So just something to keep in mind.
We also have more of a reason to do it, right? Like we wouldn't, if it wasn't for Bosch, like we probably wouldn't care what they were buying as long as they were purchasing from Grainger.
Right, exactly. So the partnership.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for that. So, I mean, yeah, it seems like that even calculating the ROI on these campaigns is is not it's sort of half science, half art as well, because you got to decide what data is not relevant to, or such as you said some of the orders that were not relevant to include as part of the ROI. So I think this requires a lot of iteration and I guess getting into the campaigns and then um, becoming familiar with the campaign and the objectives and the kind of data that you're tracking. But as I think that the great part is that now that Grainger is doing this as with these special partners, that provides much better guidance on where these campaigns are going. So I think that has also helped in framing the question for our learners, and so that has kept them focused on the problem at hand. So that's been great that we haven't had sort of a scope creep happening on what problem the learners need to solve. So while we're on this data itself, I'll keep it on. So there's one question from Ranjit, actually two, on this data. So are you able to see that, Victoria? Or
I don't see the questions. I just see the data.
so the if you see the Q&A button on the left panel, or if you just mouse over, it might pop up on the Hangout screen.
Is it the chat?
No, it's
Q&A.
about the fourth link from the top, Q&A. So the first one I've selected, that's the first one from Ranjit. He's from India. He's pretty active on our forums.
Okay. So the question is, it shows nearly
Column
about
B.
20 impressions from the non-business users. We actually currently don't have a lot of visibility into the number of actual people in each of those segments. That's a custom poll that I'm waiting to get back. We know that that about half the people who were in the Bosch segment actually made it to Grainger.com. And then it's likely that more people were just found on Grainger.com. I would say that the Bosch segment is probably bigger. The Power Tools category segment kind of throws things off a little bit, just because we had that on. So initially we thought that it would be interesting to know who was going from Bosch to Grainger and also who was going from Grainger to Bosch. So that's why we turned that on. But we realized that the Power Tools category was just so large that we couldn't do that without completely skewing the campaign. So in terms of size, the Power Tools category visitor is going to be the largest. BoschTools.com is slightly smaller. And then about half of the people who were on Bosch came to Grainger. I hope that answers the question sufficiently.
One question, you might have already answered it in your initial explanation of the data. I just want to reconfirm. This was in the email that I sent you. There's one question about what's the real difference between segment 1 and segment 2. So it's saying, does segment 1, which is BoschTools.com only, mean that the user visited a website afterwards which is not correlated to MRO? I'm guessing website might mean category.
Yeah, so Oh, sorry.
And I mean, you have the second part as well. Does the segment 2 mean that the user visited a competitor side of Grainger.com
Yeah.
after Bosch? Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I have a little. I have the email pulled up. So does one mean that the user visited a website after this not correlated MRO? Frankly, that is most likely the case. We don't
Okay.
have a ton of information about. We have some like very broad contextual information about the the, the sites that our ads were shown on, but we don't. And so some of them are, some of them are business related sites like Business Insider, Wall Street Journal, or the Practical Machinist is another popular one that we see a lot. So there are a lot of sites like that that we do serve media on, but there are also sites like IGN.com that we serve media on because we are trying to be user focused. We want to be wherever the people are. So unfortunately, we don't have visibility into any site that we haven't served media on. So it's very possible that, and maybe this gets into question two, it's very possible that these people went to HomeDepot.com or to any other competitor website, but we wouldn't know that unless we had served an impression there, and those sites don't serve media impressions directly on their site, typically.
Thank you for that. I'm going to stop this screen share, and I might just be able to pull up the other questions on the screen after this. Let me just try that as well. So let me bring up. Just hope I don't bring up the wrong screen. I got too many windows open. So that's the right one. Okay, so that'll help everybody see the questions also that we are. Okay, so that is. So we'll start with the question 1 and 2. These are sort of not related to the data. So over to either Beth or you, Victoria.
Does Grainger do any social media display ads? If so, what social media websites do we use? Are these ads targeted differently according to the channels they're placed on? So Grainger does. We started a social media practice about 5 years ago, and we think of social much more broadly than just social media. We think about it as social business. That's a little bit deviating from the heart of the question here, but we do social media. Certainly, Facebook, is one of every, I think, 4 of website visits today. So we do have a very dominant presence on Facebook. We also use it as an inventory source for our programmatic display ads, but we do actively, we have our own Facebook page, and we do place ads on Facebook. We've also done a little bit of LinkedIn, a lot of recruiting work on LinkedIn. We're trying to think what other social platforms. We've done a little bit of Twitter, but very little. It doesn't really resonate as much with our target, which tends to be slightly older. Anything that you want to piggyback on there? Yeah. For Bosch specifically, however, we are not doing social media campaigns. It's speaking more broadly for Grainger, at an enterprise level.
So notable product affinity between Bosch Power Tools and other categories of products. So this was something that I actually had to throw out to our product team, and I haven't heard back from them. So I don't know if there's product affinity in a very broad sense between Bosch Power Tools and other categories. But in this campaign specifically, the strongest affinity that we saw completely what made sense and was totally intuitive. It was between power tools and the fasteners category. And fasteners are things like screws and bolts and things like that. And then
does Grainger monitor visitors in real time? We do so from a UX, from a user experience standpoint. So when users are coming to the site, we're looking at their browsing and buying behavior. We can engage them and click to chat. We have site personalization, so their experience on the site is going to be relevant to the data that we have collected from them. So to that extent, we do monitor visitors in real time. It doesn't dictate what we do off-site, but it does guide what we do with our visitors on our site. If that addresses that question, we can move on to number 4.
Oh, I just wanted to add
Okay,
on to
go
the
ahead.
monitoring in real time. So from a display perspective, we could monitor visitors in real time, but we're not really so worried about what they do when they're on the site. We care what happens when they leave the site. So we monitor them in real, I would call it near real time, where we need to be less engaged with them in a very detailed way. So we do know when they have left in real time.
Which is really kind of that's one of the major signals in terms of how we optimize our retargeting campaigns, of course, is because we can optimize based on the site in past hour, past 2 hours, 3 hours, past 7 days, past week. We look at all kinds of intervals for campaign optimization, depending on if we're looking to drive purchase or re-engagement, for instance. So that's a very important signal that we collect. So thanks for tagging onto that one. Yep. Could we assume that Grainger can display ads on GCOM for visitors real time, trying to lead them to purchase? So we do have a team of people, our merchandising, on-site merchandising team that does exactly that. Once people are on our site, we're really not advertising to them. We're really customizing the experience to encourage, to make their experience better and more relevant, to give them the information that they need. So in a sense, I guess that's on-site merchandising, not so much advertising. We think of advertising more as off-site, that we're trying to drive people to the site. But yes, we're very active in making our on-site experience relevant and hopefully leading to conversion, of course. And then you have a question here about BoschTools.com.
I think that's already been answered. Yeah, we've already answered that. So I have another question on the Q&A. I'm going to select that. So you can have a look at that and answer that.
Yeah. So on Grainger.com, Bosch products didn't appear above the cut. So I'm curious about the experience that Charlotta had. Just in that, was it a search that she was doing, or was it like a product recommendation? Because all of those different tools that we have on the site, they all, at this time, they all kind of function a little bit differently. So for example, like our search function uses a different algorithm than our product recommendation function. And the search functionality in particular is something that is always being updated. So it could have been that, you just happened to be searching at just the wrong time. And, maybe something was in the middle of an update and unfortunately had a bad experience. Or it could have been that you didn't, if it was a product recommendation space that you were looking at, it's possible that you didn't engage enough with the Bosch products, so we didn't interpret you as being interested. So unfortunately, being registered on Grainger and being registered on Bosch, we aren't so tightly integrated with them that those two things would communicate to each other, right? So we don't know that you've all that we know is that you've been to Bosch, and unfortunately, that targeting doesn't have, at this time, it's not like a primary signal that we're taking in when we deliver the on-site experience. That's something that will come around probably in a phase 2 of this program.
Thank you for that. if we have another question or two. So there's a clarification from Charlotta on that, highlighting that. Signed up as a new client looking for power tools. So, okay, I'll just read it out. It says, she says she signed up pretending to be a new client looking for power tools. Saw a banner for Milwaukee, but none for Bosch, and even searching for Grainger choice. And she was on the site and clicked around for quite a bit.
So I don't know how much time she spent off-site after that, but I mean, that would be, did she go to a Facebook page? Did she go to CNN.com? Did she go to MarthaStewartLiving.com? It would depend on where she went. And, we might not have bidded on her. I don't know if she has an EDU address, or if that would affect.
It shouldn't affect having placed that cookie, but to me, it sounds like she's talking about her on-site experience. Yes. And so as I was trying to say before, I apologize if this wasn't clear, like that's something that we're working to integrate more into the on-site experience. It's not fully, it's not as accurate as off-site at this time.
Yeah, I think so. And also you mentioned that's handled by the merchandising team as a separate, user experience component as well.
Correct. Yep.
So we don't have any more questions right now. I had one sort of getting a sense of what is the time frame for this campaign that you're doing with Bosch, and could you give us a sense of where this partnership is going, if you can?
So this campaign in particular concluded just before Christmas. So we're working on analyzing all the results now and kind of putting together some wrap-up decks, talking about how like the lift that we saw in Bosch sales, year over year, et cetera, et cetera. I would say that traditionally we've had a very close partnership with Bosch, and the success of this campaign and the willingness between the teams to work together has definitely strengthened that partnership.
Yeah, I would just add to that, thanks to all the really great work that Victoria has done in managing this relationship, this has really caught the attention of our leadership. And this is being held up as kind of a case study of what we would like to do with many more of our strategic supplier partners. So it could be Honeywell or GE or many other partners that we would be working with in the future. So some pretty, I think, groundbreaking work. Pretty excited about it.
Great. So I know we are also asking our learners to give recommendations for email campaigns. Have you started those yet, or do you have some sense of how that will fit into your partnership with Bosch?
We have not started those yet. That's something that will be brought up in probably, like I alluded to, there will be like a phase 2 of this campaign. And we would like to start using more digital channels. So that's just something that's going to need to be strategized a little bit. Like, do we have a more specific audience? Do we want to target somebody other than power tools? What kinds of power tools messages have resonated with that audience in the past, etc. So definitely will be included in the future. Just don't know.
I'm sure. I'm sure some of our learners' recommendations might be useful when you start planning the other platforms. We have one question from Joshua. He's also a very active user in our community. I'm just selecting that. I wonder if you can see that on the screen for you, or should I read it out?
I can see that one.
Okay.
So, do we have specific KPIs, and what would you consider as a micro conversion for this particular campaign? So, since Bosch and Grainger both have sales goals to meet, we really optimize to ROI, or ROAS, or return on So that would be our like main specific KPI. Other micro conversions might be, so for this campaign it was registrations on Grainger.com. That's something that we're looking at as well. But in the past we've also considered a click a micro conversion. You know, any sign of that somebody has actually engaged with the ad, or site landers actually has been another micro conversion that we've used in the past, that we might revisit in the future. Is how many people who received an impression actually landed on Grainger.com, regardless of whether or not they bought anything.
Well, thank you for that. And Joshua, thank you for your questions and for your work in the community. I guess we don't have any more questions, so we'll close the session here. Thank you, Beth and Victoria. And I hope the learners, particularly with this data set that you gave has really helped them sort of put a concrete thought behind what they're recommending. So thank you for that, and we look forward to sharing with you some of the submissions, or sort of the top submissions that the learners give us over the next few weeks. And we finish by Feb 7th, so we'll try and collate these submissions probably by the middle of Feb. So thank you, both of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Look forward to hearing some fresh thinking from the learners, as you call it.
Thank you.